world. How are we doing out there? Well, I thought I'd do a little bedtime reading, a little bit something different. It's something I've been wanting to talk about, and I mentioned in another reading. Well, first, what I thought I'd rather discuss, but it kind of ties in with the other thing, is just a little bit about kind of my path with being psychic and like what that looks like for me, my different abilities, when it began, what that looked like for me, because it covers a lot and it ties into things like, well, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if that's what you would like to hear about, I feel like, yeah, there's a message here as per usual, but also sometimes it's just nice to kind of have a background on, like, I don't know, the people you're connecting to who are giving you a service or like, I don't know. So let's take it right to the beginning. So basically, I would say it started very early, very young with me. And it started with, my ability started with spirits, seeing ghosts, seeing entities and energies, being able to read and pick up on energetic trauma in spaces. So usually within, you know, a home space, some kind of building space, if whenever high energy occurs, and that can be both good and bad, but it usually with trauma, it's you know, a traumatic event or events, and it really does leave an imprint in spaces. And so yeah, very, very early on. But my first memory of encountering a ghost, I would have been about six and a half, because my sister had just been born. And on this day, it was an afternoon, I can see it perfectly. I had been out playing, and my mom was at home having a nap with my sister, because my sister was just a baby. And the shitty dog that lived on our street, this little wiener dog, I don't know why, but he attacked me and he bit the shit out of my leg. Like, it was a good bite. So naturally, I was having to cry about it. And I was running home to tell my mom about it. And in our house, the way you entered, it was like, there was the front door, which led to a boot room, and the boot room had the door that entered into the house, which was like living room and a staircase. And so, you know, I ran through the front door, wasn't taking off my shoes because that bite was bad, and I opened up the second door to go into the living room, and right as I opened up the door, there was a ghost floating above me. It was a person, didn't have a lot of features, but had clothes, oddly enough. And suffice to say, I looked at it for all of 3 seconds, was like, freaked the fuck out, ran in the other direction, and it was a big to-do. And so that was kind of my initial, so at 6, but there was things before the age of 6 that to me kind of spiritually stand out. So there was things, yeah, in infancy that my mom told me about and things, but in terms of me actually remembering the first real seeing a spirit, that was the one. And I've mentioned this and been very open about my childhood, lots of trauma, and that's only important I say this because my experience of my abilities is that my psychic abilities are heightened when I'm in high emotion, and that can be joy, rage, anger, grief, stuff like that. And so there was a point when I would have been about 8. There was a lot of psychic stuff happening, but at 8, that's when I started to see, now they refer to it as shadow people, but again, in the 80s, being an 8-year-old, and they sent me to a psychologist, but because of the stuff going on at home, they were like, it's stress-induced hallucinations. But what I see now to be true of my experiences up until then is that when there's high trauma in your own life, which creates, to me, those fractures, or whether it's your aura or your spirit, but there's fragments, and it leaves openings for things. And when you're in survival mode, your energy is not high vibe, it's lower. You're in fear because you're surviving. So my abilities to tap into things were always there, but I think because of things like high trauma and what was going on in my own psyche, I attracted a lot of darker energies right out of the gate. They've always loved me. And I think this is an important part of this bigger conversation. Yeah. So it was always there. And I should also mention like how I was raised. So my mom was definitely a philosopher and was very open-minded, thank God, because my interest, so not only was I seeing things, but just on my own, because I wasn't raised in a religious household. So my stepdad, he's like French, Canadian, Quebecois, but Irish Catholic. So I wasn't raised in the church. He didn't really bring that, but there was a whisper of that influence. But and in the 80s, our schools in Canada had religious classes, so there was always an influence of like a Christian Catholic faith, but I wasn't raised in the church, and it wasn't a big part of our household. So my mom was good in the sense that she was more of a spiritual mindedness and very open, and had read some very interesting literature. And so I remember asking about what God was, and really interested in death, also around the ages of like 6 and up. And again, and because I had 2 dysregulated parents, like I was raising them and I was raising my sister. So it's not like I spent a lot of time alone, and I had a lot of time to think about things. So it's not like it was, again, being shaped by others. It was a natural inclination that has always been from the time I can. So I always believed in something greater than myself. And also at the age of 7 or 8, my mom got me this telescope kit. It was the first time where I identified, where I was like, so with this telescope kit came the telescope, but it came with this beautiful little booklet, and it had these beautiful colored photos of like the cosmos. And I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, I don't know what God is, but like that's probably the closest thing, like this cosmos, like something bigger than myself, like not a man in the sky, but like this. And also just feeling like I don't come from here, and feeling like, yeah, I come from far away, like the cosmos makes sense to me. So yeah, I would just say it was always there, and there's really significant kind of moments of knowing, also just knowing terrible things before they were going to happen. When I was, an example of this being, and I mention this because it's kind of been referenced already, so in the last few videos, somehow I had the downloads when I was talking about something, and then someone had mentioned the other tarot card reader, the Connected Conduit, and I was saying, oh my god, like, not only do I know of that reader, but they just did this reading, and they mentioned the Tea Party and this song off this album, and I was really like, that album is really significant because it was the album that I listened to right before a really terrible, traumatic instance occurred. It was like the next big traumatic thing. But this is an instance of knowing before something happens, and this has kind of been a theme in my life. But as I said in another video, like, I can see, I was sitting in my mom's rocking chair. I was sitting on it sideways, so my legs were dangling over, and I was listening to that album, and I knew what was about to come. And I remember thinking to myself, this is gonna change my life. And it did. And it's happened before. I've had like things like car accidents, or like my bike accident. Before I was hit by a truck, moments before, I said to myself, wouldn't it be funny if I was hit by a vehicle? Hit by a truck. Before my bike accident in New York, something similar, moments before. So, stuff like that. And then the biggest, going back to physical spaces, around the same age of that traumatic, that it was in the same time period, I just been sent back to live with my mom because my stepdad had gotten custody of us. He's the NPD, he's a real sick fuck. Anyway, when I was 11, I ran away in BC because my stepdad was crazy and harmful. And anyway, he sent me back to live with my mom. And my mom at that time was married to a new terrible human being, and a lot of violence, a lot of domestics. He was always in and out of jail around that. And so when I went back to live with my mom, I knew something had occurred between them because he was back in jail in a way, but he wasn't there. And my mom had this like 1-bedroom basement apartment that we were living in that she had also lived in with this fellow. And on this one particular night, we were getting ready for bed, and then out of nowhere, I started to panic, and in my mind, I was picking up on something that was about to happen. So I was super panicked, and I was like, someone's gonna break in tonight. Like, someone's coming for us. We have to lock all the doors. Like, basically, I started to like go through these things, and my mom was kind of freaking out about, but little did I know it's because what I was doing is I was reenacting the night that this dude, her husband, held her hostage and stabbed her. And I didn't know this at the time. So what I was experiencing is that energetic footprint that had been left in that space. And I don't know what it was about that night, because it's not like I just had come home. We had been in this apartment forever, but something about that night, I was open to it. And I just started to relive my mom's experience. It was through her lens, essentially. That's why my mom was freaking out, because she was like, how could you know? Because I just basically did everything that she did that night, verbatim. And it freaked my mom out. It freaked her out so much because I was on the money. And because I thought it was a future, it was gonna happen that night, she wanted to kind of assuage my fears. So she basically told me, she was like, I don't think you're picking up something that's about to happen. You're picking up what already happened. And then she told me about that night. The next big thing, and this is where I feel like it's important, just with my experience of spirits, entities, energies, being afraid. And this ties into what I was saying when I found that other YouTube reader, and I'd mentioned that she recently, I found her because I was like, I couldn't remember her name, and I found her, and she made this like one last post. And like I said, I didn't finish watching it, but from what I ascertained from the third that I watched is that basically she got super spooked. Sounds like something was energetically messing with her of a lower vibration. Freaked right out, made more of a connection to it coming through tarot, and went back to, she grew up in a more Christian faith, so that kind of redirected her. And so I think why I bring this up is because, well, you'll see in a sec. I'll bring up the next instance. So where it got really bad, and this is where I relate, because there are things out there that are very unpleasant. It's very scary. And it's not, this isn't meant to scare, it's more about just my experience of what exists, and they are scary. It's like, and I do hear other people talk about this, like the spiritual realm, whether, and it doesn't matter what your faith is, and I want to bring this up as another point, it's whether you're in love with Jesus and Jesus is the only path, and you're involved in the church, or it's other modalities, God, and whether you want to call it the devil, like light and dark, they're two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. You will find, the darkness will find you in anybody's house. I don't care if it's the Zen Buddhist temple, the Church of God, a cult, an ayahuasca trip. Like, if you're searching for God, you're gonna find the devil as well. And I'm using the devil lightly here, but I'm also gonna be really real that there's like some really darker forces. There just are, in my experience. So, fast forward, I am 13 now, and we're now living in Whitehorse, Yukon. And my mom was a single mom, definitely poor. Grew up poor, and she was going to school full time, and so we didn't have a lot of options. And this is important because I was away on a summer visit visiting my sister with a stepdad, and my mom we had to move, and so my mom had acquired a new apartment, or like this duplex. And I remember when she called me to tell me that she got the new apartment for us. She was really excited, and as soon as she told me about it, I instantly had a vision, blood on the walls, and I was petrified. Instantly, I was like, Mom, we cannot move into this place. Like, I don't care what, and again, I was young, I had just no real appreciation for what it means to be a single parent who's a bit poorer, and housing options, and stuff like that. So it wasn't an option for my mom to not take this apartment. And so I came back, and it was a nice enough place. Like, in all appearances, it was peaceful. It looked nice. And my bedroom was in the basement. Actually, all the bedrooms were. They were all in the basement in this duplex. And my bedroom faced the backyard, and it faced another duplex. This is gonna be important. So remember this piece. So I tell my mom instantly. My mom knows I'm psychic, but sometimes you're just like, oh, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, again, you're kind of like, oh, what does that mean, blood on the walls? Like, you're just like, fuck, kid, like, I gotta take this place. So whatever, I move in, and at this time, what's also important is that my mom was fostering a kid at this point. So it was myself, the foster kid, my mom living in this place. And this foster kid, she was a bit older than me, so she was a teen as well. And in this particular summer, right when we moved in, a child that she had grown up with in foster care, who is now a young teen, had gone missing. And so everyone was looking for her this summer. And so at the same time, I'm also going through the beginning of insane panic attacks, like insane. There was a lot going on in my life with trauma. And so it was coming out in the form of debilitating panic attacks. And So just kind of a hot mess. My mom had PTSD from the last husband. Like it was a hot mess. And so I was really struggling. And so in this room, it really, the psychic atmosphere really picked up. I was super depressed. I was really, like, again, the panic attacks were next level. My mom was having panic attacks. The ambulance was at her house all the time due to her panic attacks. We were always dying. It was a hot mess. I was super depressed. And then I started to be spiritually attacked in this room, like demons. It was, I'm just going to use the term demons for the use of language. We can talk about that because you get to know the flavors of different realms. But this was the big shit. They were attacking me in my dreams, and I was losing it, like full on. I was suicidal at this point. It was so scary. I couldn't sleep because I was afraid to go to sleep. Nothing was working. It was very real. And like, honestly, up until just recently, I very rarely ever talked about that particular, also because we've really moved. There's so much acceptance with so many things now that were just not talked about. You were deemed crazy, or like it was not the same in the 80s. Also in remote parts of Canada, like you just couldn't talk about this shit. But it got to the point, and so I mention all this because of when there's spiritual attacks, I understand why people immediately flock back to Christianity, because Christianity uses a lot of fear-based leadership, to be honest. There's a lot of talk about this. And not because it isn't real, whatever. My point is, I understand why if you haven't experienced a spiritual attack from really fucking terrifying entities and energies, it's easy breezy until you experience it. It's just like, and you're not really equipped. So it got to the point that I pulled my mom aside one day and I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know if I'm insane. I don't know if there's demons. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I cannot live like this. Like, I cannot live like this. I will fucking kill myself. You have to get a priest in here or something. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but like, we need help. So my mom just happened to like work with this pretty cool priest, and so she didn't give him very many details. She just said, listen, there's a bit of a situation at our house. I just need you to do a walkthrough. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I just need you to do a walkthrough and tell me if anything comes up for you. So he did. He came over, he walked through the whole house, and when he came back up, he said, you know what? He said, I did the whole upstairs, fine. When I walked downstairs, he did my mom's room first, fine. He did Nicole's bedroom, fine. And he didn't know whose bedroom was who, but he said, when I went into that last bedroom, he said the hairs stood up on the back of my neck. He said, there's absolutely some stuff going on in here. So basically, I don't know, I don't know if we can say if it was an exorcism. I don't even know what church he belonged to. I just know that my mom got a priest in there. He did some work. But right after that, what happened was my mom and I were in the backyard. It was a summer day. It was still the same summer. And all of a sudden, all of the police dogs come through the backyard. They're looking, going crazy. We don't know what the fuck's going on. Long story short, you know how I said my bedroom window faced the duplex right behind our backyard? Like, my bedroom window faced this other guy's bedroom window. Well, guess what? He was the boyfriend of the young lady who was missing. And so what happened is that whole winter, and I remember in the winter, he kept his bedroom window open and he would chain smoke out of there. Well, that summer, his family was moving, and guess what happened? He had a waterbed. And the dad was like, son, we need you to dismantle your waterbed. And he took off, and the dad was like, what the fuck? Well, they dismantled the waterbed, and they found that underneath was the body of this young woman. And so basically the the psychic spiritual attacks occurred at the exact moment that basically he murdered her. It was that winter, and that's when it really took off for me. So my sensitivity to, again, picking up and reading traumatic events, picking up on the people who do traumatizing things, it is a gift and ability. It's something that comes with me. And that's where after that priest came and we cleared out some energies, it really propelled me into Buddhism. It's what led me to really, and to learn how to psychically shut it down. I didn't just protect myself. I was like, I do not want these gifts. I do not want these gifts. I've been seeing shit my whole life. It's fucking terrifying. I don't want these fucking gifts. What does it serve me? People think I'm crazy. But also I'm like, I'm just being attacked and it's terrifying. You know, up until, I would still say, like, I find things that we can't see on the day-to-day is sometimes far more terrifying than human beings. I will say that. But here's the thing, and this is why it's really important, I think, to study and learn about a lot of different theologies and faiths. That's just been my experience. It's just naturally interesting to me. But I have pulled and drawn from all different faiths and traditions. I think they all have something to offer, but they all have something to teach. But that particular incident, and that would have been 13, 14. I was still interested in spirituality, but Buddhism was kind of a bit safer, and I had a really strong affinity for it. So it was the perfect block next for me to focus on and to ask questions, but it wasn't based on that like a singular God. It was more considered a philosophy, and it was also based on compassion. So it kind of allowed me to still honor the spiritual itch in me, but on a psychic level to be like, nope, we're shutting it down. I'd rather just learn how to meditate, and we're just like, but it did also teach me about being the captain of your ship. So this is what I've learned, having grappled with light and dark, and having studied now under a lot of philosophies, theologies, traditions, and also like in the more magical realms now. Because it is no different whether you're dealing with a sociopathic person or a lower vibrational entity. What is true, and same of the angelic realm, is that basically no matter who you're dealing with, everyone has a name, and everyone in that area, they all have a place and a function. So while yes, they do have some abilities, more often than not, they have less abilities than you think, and it's a pretty small kind of window that they can operate under. And so once you understand that, because it works on fear. So I had used an example, Spirit, I'd done a reading a while ago, but there's like this hermit card, and there's like the snake on the path. And what Spirit was showing me is that, like, whether it be a dark fuck of a person or an energy entity spirit, they use your light to cast a shadow on them to make it appear as though they are bigger and scarier than they are. And it works off of your fear. And it's only going to work in the ways, you know, so for me, it was really showing somewhere within me, I had a fear of demons. And so it presented as such. Like, whatever your fear is, that's what's going to show up as. So if you don't believe in boogeymen, demons, spirits, ghosts, if you haven't experienced that and you don't believe it, it's not going to show up that way for you. It's going to show up in the way that your fears, your deepest fears, are in there. So there is an intelligence that way, and they're smart. But once you understand what the fear is and what their abilities are, and it's funny because actually, what seems to show up a lot in my YouTube algorithm these days are these like Catholic priests who do exorcisms, and I was like, you know what? Again, interested. Let's hear what they have to say. And there's this one priest I actually really like, and I like him because to me, the things that he's spoken about seem to really resonate. Where I'm like, you know what? We're different, but your experience of doing exorcisms, he's done quite a few, and the differences of certain things. But he was like, because the interview, he was really scared. You could tell like this kid was just like, I couldn't do what you do, and he kind of asked something to the effect of like, are you basically shitting your pants every time you walk into a space that you have to do an exorcism, and like you're coming up against an entity? And the priest was really honest. He was like, you know what, the first couple times, yeah, because you know they only have a few tricks, but in the ways that they can really like whether it's be throwing stuff around or like leaving scratch marks, they can do stuff that's pretty intense. But if you can see past it's like, it's kind of like seeing a kid trying to be a boogeyman. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, on one hand, it is terrifying, absolutely, make you shit your pants, like nothing scarier. But it is a boogeyman. They're a lot smaller. Going back to the reference of like, again, if you've kind of worked in film, or if you know how like you can take a flashlight and make it bigger, right? And that's what I mean. It's like these little dirt kicking snakes, they use your light to cast a shadow that makes them appear way bigger than they are, way scarier. So if you can understand that, if you can work through that and learn also how and why these things attach to us, and that's why I really can emphasize things like just the self-care, whether it be through mental health, addictions. It's good to have ritual, but when you're in lower places, emotionally, mentally, just know that it is creating a bit of an environment. And even if it's not entities and energies, you can attract that lower vibrational quality in people and places and things. I'm just trying to think of like when I started to become less afraid and kind of, well, to be honest, I still feel like from that 14-year-old me, 13-year-old me who said that initial, is why I don't do a lot of mediumship anymore. Like I will get, if I open up a little bit, and especially now doing YouTube, I'll start to channel from people. I really don't love that, to be honest. Just because I'm so sensitive, I just feel like things flock to me. It requires a lot. It's also why I didn't want to move to New York for the longest time. Like, that was the other thing. Like, I knew how I ended up moving to New York. I was like, I had a plane ticket to New Zealand. I was just killing time in Toronto. And I was sitting on the couch again, kind of in the in-between, just staring at a wall, and Spirit very clearly told me, they were like, you're moving to New York next, you're not going to New Zealand. And I was like, and this is what I mean. So my psychicness can come in the form of actually seeing things. So again, with spirits, I see a lot of dead animals. Since I've shut it down, I don't, hold on, I'm telling two kind of stories. Okay, we'll stick with the physical space thing for a little bit. So with my gifts and abilities, yes, I can see spirits. It's not my favorite. I can hear spirits, also not my favorite, but I'm better at setting boundaries when I can feel them, because a lot of times there's spirits around. They're just excited if they know that you're sensitive. Not all are malevolent, and some aren't malevolent, but they're mischievous, and that can be also irritating, because you're just like, my guy, can we fucking not right now? Like, knock it off, you know? So, and that's why I'm very particular about spaces. I'm very particular about who touches me, because you just never know what you're gonna instantly know, sense, or feel. And again, I tend to pick up on the darker stuff. Everything in my life is about extremes. I've said it before, like, not only am I a Gemini and being born on the cusp, like, everything for me is like, I just call myself the in-between. I'm always in between two worlds. And I rock a fine line. It seems to be part of my story and my journey to go to places that most don't like to go. And I've really stuck my head into the lion's mouth, you know. That's, yeah, I'm always rocking a very fine line. Yeah, it's part of my gifts and abilities. Wouldn't recommend it, but it's part of my gifts and abilities. It's how I work. And the vocabulary has changed, because yeah, so going back to like gifts and abilities, so being able to, off of items, spaces, pick up on stuff, know stuff, I see stuff. Dreaming has always been a big part of my medicine. Less so in the last few years. It's still, I know there's a lot going on, even if I can't remember, but in terms of receiving, yeah, I have basically prophetic dreams, what I call good medicine dreams, and then just regular dreams. But yes, when the dream world is active, a lot can happen there. A lot of times too, I'll get like a snapshot. I'll get a picture. And the other thing with all of my, when it comes to knowing or getting a prophetic thing, I can always energetically know what's mine and what's not mine, because for one, when I get the snapshot, I always call it a neutral feeling. Like, truth is kind of like, it's unemotional. It's like when I get a truthful image or a fact or an event that's about to happen, I don't know how to I don't know how to describe it other than to say it just feels neutral. It's just fact. And so that's helped me to be able to discern. And going back to the New York thing, I'll also know when it's coming from spirit or my spirit team, because my personality will not be of it. You know, like when spirit was like, you're moving to New York, I was like, the fuck I am. The fuck I am. What the fuck are you talking about? I've just spent $2,000. It was less than $2,000. But I was like, I have 2 weeks, like I have a work visa, I have a bank account. I'm supposed to be living in New York or in New Zealand for a whole year. And I got sassy. I gave all these conditions. But going back to my personality was like, no. And spirit was like, yes, yes, yes. You can say no, no, no. You can give all the stipulations, all the rules, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, hearing. All the clairs are there. And they ebb and they flow. I never really know when I'm going to receive something. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like when I became less fearful of my gifts and abilities. And I can't really say actually when that occurred. But like for things though that like tarot, even aside from those, see, like tarot to me was very different than dealing with spirits. Like I feel like that type of psychicness and dealing with that is kind of two different things, but one doesn't preclude the other. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. It's also why I can't watch, I've never been able to handle scary movies. I don't watch scary movies, especially any that has to do with spiritual entities. Can't fucking do it. I know it works for some people, but it's like too close for home. It freaks me right the fuck out. Plus, I just, again, I'm too sensitive. I feel like even just dialing into that energy is like a portal for me. So like I don't crime shows, like most of us, we all love a good crime show. I'm like practically the world's leading homicide detective over here, like the amount of true crime shows. And as much as I loved watching true crime, because also I really want to be a homicide detective again, this little monkey mind, I'm a great detective. But when you energetically, oh, that's part of my gift and ability. I can access people, places, and things. Like I can step in and view from within them. It's not pleasant. Again, it's not usually, like now I'm tapping into things like angelic stuff, and like when I do readings for people, I can tap into the good stuff, but more often than not, I'm tapping into some pretty dark shit, and it's not for the faint of heart. You have to know how to discern and untangle. It's really easy to get lost. I guess it's the thing with spiritualism, and it doesn't matter whether, again, it's Christian faith, it's woo. You know, like going back to the guy on my YouTube channel, like you can run to Christ and the church, but like if you're really being psychically attacked, it's gonna follow you no matter where you go. You're gonna have to learn the self-mastery. Going back to spell work, everything, whether it's, people, places, and things, energies, entities, spirits, ghosts, you have to master your etheric body, your physical body, the mind, the heart. Because again, whenever there's a crack, or if there's things that haven't been healed, they can just kind of pick away, you know? And if you don't know what to look for, how to address it, it can kind of take over. And again, it can just be really scary. So yeah, I'm really conscious of the content that I take in. And as a parent now, I can't watch any true crime. Like I'll watch an old CSI because I find it a little bit corny. You know what I mean? It's like, it's safe. It's still got a bit of violence, but to me, it's just like, it's fluffy. And I still don't watch a ton of that, but like, you know, a Matlock, a Columbo, an old CSI, I'll do that. But yeah, content is big. And so, well, I guess there are tools. Like for instance, I will never go near a Ouija board. I guess how I feel about a Ouija board is how some people could feel about the tarot cards. And you can only know what you know. Like, even when I once dated an atheist for a hot second. And my whole thing is I'm like, who am I? Like, if you haven't experienced something yet, that's very real for you. I can only know my own experiences, you know? It's just what I've experienced, it's what I know, and I've tested it again and again and again. And so for me, I've just really worked out. It's like mapping. It's like knowing a city, the realms. You have to, once you know what you're working with, or what's around you, it's a lot easier. It's when you don't know, and then it all just seems very terrifying. But we're way more empowered than we think. And once you understand the rules of engagement, that's really what it is, the rules of engagement. And it doesn't, again, I go back to, it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Muslim, like, and we see that in communities, right? Even if we just keep it to humans, like, oh my God, there isn't one community that doesn't have evil people in it. Whether it's the churches, indigenous communities, Buddhist communities, fucking woo communities. We have cults galore. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you have to be discerning. The devil will find, and again, I'm using the term devil lightly, but you know what I mean? Like, those things will find a way. They're very clever. And so, it is about discernment. But going back to what I was saying, if you just deduce everything, you can get really lost in the theoretical and really going into faith and traditions. Everything I've learned about any kind of attack is just, it reminds me of that movie with Keanu Reeves when he plays Siddhartha, Buddha, and he's being tested. And also remember, like, all of the ascended masters, they were all tested. Jesus in the desert, 40 days, 40 nights. The devil showed up, he was tested. They're all tested, and it plays out on your desires and your fears. However they can get you. If they can't get you through fear, they're gonna get you through lust, you know? Hedonism, gluttony, any of those. But it reminds me of, but it's well portrayed in the movie, where he's sitting and he's meditating, and the first test comes up, and you see it's like a huge army, thousands of these dark forces, and they're all like shooting these like fiery arrows at him. And I would say what he does is he just stays calm, but it's like going within, seeing past the illusion, overriding fear. And every time he overrid the fear, all those like thousands of arrows and flames coming towards him and all the marching demons and horses, they all turn into snowflakes. You know, like there was all these things. So but yeah, certain things, like to be honest, like doll hauntings, absolutely are fucking real. I'm very mindful of dolls and stuffies and how they feel. When I was a kid, yeah. My mom actually brought home a ventriloquist doll when I was 6, and I wasn't even the one to even say it, her and her best friend, because it started to move around the fucking house. This fucking doll was moving, and my mom has like some form of OCD, so everything in our house had a place. Nothing moved. You couldn't move a fucking thing with my mom, because again, the control, the OCPD, it's pathology, not the true OCD. But anyways, yeah, this ventriloquist doll, I think it stayed for us for a week. My mom bought it for me. I took one look at it and I was like, hell fucking no. My mom was into some fucking weird dolls. They all gave me the fucking creeps. Yeah, so the doll was moving itself around, and my mom knew it wasn't me because I wouldn't go near the fucking doll. My sister was a baby, and they both had the creeps, so we fucking chucked that thing. So yeah, mindful, yeah, won't ever go near a Ouija board. That's also because my mom, when she was a kid, she always told me this story, and I believe it to be true because other people have had similar experiences. And I know people in the spiritual community, that seems to be their magic. They like to work with those spirits. That, they have a reign on that. For me, I'm like, So it's not to say that people who do work with that, but it's, that for me is like, So when my mom was a kid, because again, it was the classic toy, I don't know, in the 50s, I don't know what people were thinking. My mom and her brothers and sisters received a Ouija board for Christmas. And so all of them excitedly clamored around. They took it up to the bed, you know, the upstairs bedroom away from grandma and grandpa. They were playing within the bedroom. And they excitedly asked it, you know, like, Ouija board, like, you know, we got you for Christmas. This was the thing. They're like, Ouija board, we got you for Christmas. What did you get for Christmas? You know what the Ouija board fucking spelled out for it? You. That's what I mean. Where it's just like, no. But again, you have to know your own gifts and abilities. You have to test things out. My path and my gifts and abilities are very different from others. Again, some people in the magical communities, a lot of traditions, including Hebrew, like when you get into like Solomonic magic, you're working with angels and demons. So, in this, you know, everyone's got a path. But that's a little bit of my background in being a psychic medium and just kind of my experiences, and yeah. But it does feel very different, like that feels different. Not different, but it's just, I don't know, seeing dead people, and events and propheticness is still tied into tarot, but it's just a different offshoot. But going back to substance use, you know, even if I didn't have kind of a history of addictions, and having spent a lot of time in the 12-step model of being sober, I don't judge people who drink. You know, I've definitely enjoyed a cocktail, but what I can say as a very sensitive person, they call it a spirit for a reason. And to me, it's a portal. Like, it's a wild card. It changes things very quickly. I think it's an invitation, but the way that it changes people, and I don't like that change within myself. And because it's a depressant, yeah, it's something I really am mindful of, especially when it pertains to doing spiritual work. You know, I was really blessed to grow up in Indigenous communities. A lot of my friends were Indigenous, and I was able to participate and get invited to certain ceremonies and different things. But one of them was a sweat. I went to a lot of sweats. A lot of them were sun dancers. Definitely went to sweats that were not for the sun dancers. But either way, one of the biggest things though is that you never enter a sweat until you've kind of purified. So like, definitely no drugs and alcohol for 4 days leading up to it, you know? Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, just only because when I think about this tarot card reader, and there's kind of a resurgence. There's like, this is a really, it's happening everywhere. And I don't think there's any right or wrong path. I just more get concerned for people who think that if I go straight to Jesus, the spiritual attacks will stop. And it's not to say that you can't stop it through Jesus, but I think there can be a naivety in certain more traditional faiths, whether it be Muslim, Christianity, in the Jewish traditions. My experience is that you can be attacked anywhere, any faith, any tradition, anytime, whether you're sensitive or not, it can come up. And if you don't ever get to experience it, like, God bless. You don't want to. It's anything of power, you have to meet with reverence and respect. And that goes for darkness. Anything, we all are power. Whether it be creatures, big and small, we all have gifts and abilities. We all have power. We will all return to power. We come from power. That being said, there has to be a certain level of respect. Because again, everything exists somewhere and they have their place, like their neighborhood, their, you know, like, just like animals. If you walk into a bear cave unannounced and you try to get cozy in there, a bear's gonna kick your ass because you're treading on its territory. So I find that's why, going back to kind of when I talk about dollar store magic, it's like a lot of people, and especially people who have ill intentions, who want a quick fix, they're now, all this magic because of YouTube, all this information is now for everyone. And so people are experimenting and trying stuff, and they're also doing it with things like conditions of like, they're using a lot of substances, and it gets really weird really fast with substances. So even when I have been very much in my hedonism, I've never mistaken using substances as the direct link that I want with spirit. And not to say that you can't have real experiences that give you wisdom, but having done things like sweats, certain, and even with Buddhism, just I like knowing when I receive something that it's coming from absolute clarity, that there's nothing impeding or something that could mimic an experience. Do you know what I mean? Well, anyway, I think I'll just leave it there. But that's just kind of a little foray, a little information into kind of my beliefs, my experiences around this, how I operate. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. The thing about being human is that we really like to think that we know, but if there's anything that I've learned is that there's so much more than we know, especially in the spiritual realm. I don't claim to know anything other than just my own experiences and what has worked and what hasn't worked, and kind of what I've recognized. But yeah, on any given day, there's a ton of shit going on energetically. So I just say, just like anything, if you show up with respect, take the time to learn, and to understand the ground rules. I would say that's important. If you understand kind of the ground rules of how things work, and again, with things like the differences between like ghosts, and sometimes, like for instance, like in spaces, I've encountered what are ghosts, like spirits that just cannot seem to move away yet because they're either lost or they're attached, versus something will look like a ghost, but it's really, again, kind of like a shotgun blast, like a traumatic moment that gets imprinted, and it's kind of a loop. So it's not really a ghost, it's kind of like a tulpa, or like an energy, like a snapshot of that energy in the moment. So it's not the full ghost, if that makes sense, or the spirit, but it's like the spirit of that traumatic moment that stays. So I'm a big believer in energetic cleansing, and that just goes to even just cleaning your house regularly. When homes are chaotic, it also attracts things. That's why, all my years of house cleaning for clients, every time I go into a hoardy home or where there's piles and piles and piles, and this isn't a judgment, I'm not making judgments here, it's just an observation. But when I go into homes that are chaotic and have hoarding, clutter, and a lot of mess, the mental health follows that every single time. And again, going back to mental health, as soon as depression or like those things, it just means there's a lower vibration. As soon as there's lower vibrations, entities and energies of lower vibrations can kind of just start hanging around. And not all are gonna present as like super scary things, but like, I believe that addiction has spirits attached to it. I believe that depression has like a kind of a spirit to it, right? There's these things. I don't know. Anyway, that's a little bit about my own experience. There's a lot more there, but I just thought I'd touch upon it because I think, yeah, there's naturally a lot of fear around certain things, and I see why people get freaked out, and I see why people are like, I had a crazy experience, now I have to go straight back to God. Like everything outside of the church, anything outside of Jesus is like the devil. If that's your experience, who am I to say that? That hasn't been my experience. Everything is a tool, and everything has power. So we all are given the same means of the tools. Like we can all pick up a tool and use it and do whatever we want with it. So do I think the tarot is evil? I don't. Like I said, for me, it's always told the truth, especially when I haven't wanted to hear the truth. It doesn't feed me what I want to hear. And because I have an energetic fingerprint for the people on my spirit team. And I'm working with all of them now. Like Jesus, he does. Jesus has it. It's a very distinct feeling when Jesus is around. I've started to work with Mother Mary. Mother Mary has a very distinct feeling. The archangels have a very distinct feeling. And if you ask for a calling card, they'll give you one. My grandmother has a very distinct feeling. So be excited about it, but have a healthy respect, you know? And like anything, most things have a healthy dose of fear, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't explore things and learn about things and develop your skills. I'd say absolutely do those things, but again, learn the ground rules. And yeah, okay, that's it. Stay blessed, stay golden. Night, night.